Hello guys. For those of you who like watching MMA, especially the UFC, where participants come from all over the world, the sport that is starting to rise and is liked by many people, especially men, has 8 different division classes. Here we tell you who are the UFC fighters who are belt holders from various divisional rankings. But before we continue, please click the subscribe button and activate the bell so you don't miss any news from us. Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno won the Flyweight Championship belt after defeating Deiveson Figueiredo at UFC 263. Their second fight had a different result from their first fight, which was a draw at that time. In this fight, Brandon Moreno managed to release a deadly stranglehold in the third round. Moreno's journey to becoming a flyweight champion was not as smooth as we thought before. Even Moreno was kicked out by UFC President Dana White for experiencing a terrible career slump. However, Moreno did not just give up, so he joined the MMA promoter event called LFA and immediately came out as champion in the flyweight. With Moreno's achievements, the UFC finally invited Moreno to join. This time Moreno, in his 5 fights in the UFC, won 3 times and drew 2 times. One of them was Moreno's fight against Deiveson with a draw in December. Aljamain Sterling, bantamweight. In bantamweight, there is Aljamain Sterling as the holder of the championship belt. Although considered controversial, Aljamain Sterling is still the rightful belt holder. Some argue that the fight between Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan is considered inappropriate because it ends in disqualification. At that time they fought at UFC 259, where Petr Yan appeared very dominant, but made the mistake of committing illegal acts. As a result of that action, Petr Yan, who emerged as the defending champion, was disqualified from the fight due to his illegal moves. What makes this fight controversial is when Aljamain Sterling looks in pain when he is hit by the illegal kick, where he is considered only doing an act. Aljamain Sterling also celebrated his victory after the match. Currently, Aljamain Sterling has not been able to prove that he deserves to be a champion in October. That's because Aljamain Sterling's neck injury has not yet recovered, which resulted in the failure of the rematch between him and Petr Yan at UFC 267. The resignation of Aljamain Sterling was then replaced by Corey Sandhagen. Alexander Volkanovski, featherweight. Alexander Volkanovski successfully defended his featherweight title with a unanimous decision through a hot and turbulent fight against Brian Ortega UFC 266 yesterday. Volkanovski successfully defended his featherweight title with a unanimous decision victory in a thrilling fight in Las Vegas. Volkanovski has won 20 of his professional fights in a row at lightweight. The Austrian fighter has been fighting at featherweight for the last 4 years, but when he found that he weighed 214 pounds while he was playing in the semi-professional rugby league, then this man may deserve to move up to lightweight at the UFC event. From there, Volkanovski's next opponent may be Conor McGregor, but now McGregor only has 2 fights left under his UFC contract, and Conor McGregor has declared his intention to fight Dustin Poirier for the 4th time. Whether McGregor's next fight against Dustin Poirier, or should he fight Alexander Volkanovski, is not a problem, because the fight of these 3 people is worth the wait. For information, Conor McGregor had written a tweet that contained a mockery of Volkanovski before his match against Brian Ortega at UFC 266. "I'm going to kick this Volkanovski in the head like a rugby ball I kick. Haha, he's a little fart. Not even a little fart. What an asshole, haha," Conor McGregor wrote in a now deleted tweet. Maybe this is a signal that the possibility of Conor McGregor in the future will meet with Alexander Volkanovski. Charles Oliveira, lightweight. Charles Oliveira is a man who deserves to be proud of his achievements, as he won the lightweight belt by beating Michael Chandler at UFC 262. The 27 UFC fighting competitions he had previously competed in was not an easy move. Oliveira entered the UFC in 2010. After experiencing 2 wins in a row, Oliveira has experienced ups and downs with both defeats and wins. In all of Oliveira's fights, none of them could get him anywhere near a title fight at the time. Until 2018, that's when Charles Oliveira experienced the latest and longest winning streak that brought him closer to a battle for the title belt. Not only that, Charles Oliveira even beat big names like Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson until he finally faced a fight at UFC 262 and got his belt title. Charles Oliveira's journey in winning the championship belt can be said that it is an opportunity that will never exist again. As we know, the lightweight division is famous for its ferocity, but whatever it is, what happened to Charles Oliveira was like a fate that had been ordained by God. For example, Khabib Nurmagomedov, who retired young, Dustin Poirier, who wanted a rematch with Conor McGregor, and on the one hand Conor McGregor suffered an injury to his leg. It was an unlikely coincidence for the second time in Charles Oliveira's life. As we also know that a quiet fighter will not have good prospects, especially if he loses the fight, then the possibility of being expelled from the promoter is waiting in front of his eyes. Conditions like this are very close to Charles Oliveira. But now, Charles Oliveira has earned his belt, and he will defend that belt against Dustin Poirier in his next bout. Kamaru Usman, welterweight. The King of Kings is a proper title pinned to Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman not only was the middleweight belt holder, but he also surpassed former light heavyweight champion Jon Jones as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. As we know that, UFC updated their pound-for-pound rating recently. Kamaru Usman is the man who has replaced Jon Jones, the long-time inactive former light heavyweight champion. In the course of his career, Usman has succeeded in overthrowing one by one the best fighters in the welterweight division. Usman has long been credited with being one of the most dominant welterweight boxers of all time. Since 2019, Kamaru has successfully fought 5 times in the octagon, and in 2 years, Nigerian Nightmare has not only won the belt, but has also managed to defend it 4 times. In defending his belt, he has knocked out Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, and George Masvidal. Usman had become the welterweight champion on March 2, 2019, by defeating former champion Tyron Woodley at UFC 235. Currently, Kamaru Usman is being slated to take on Colby Covington in the next title rematch at UFC 268. And again, Kamaru Usman managed to defend his championship belt when he met Colby Covington. Israel Adesanya, middleweight. Israel Adesanya is considered the best striker in martial arts. The reigning middleweight champion is arguably one of the UFC's biggest active stars. Since coming out with 5 wins in his first year with the UFC, Israel Adesanya has continued to develop over time. Israel Adesanya's only defeat was against Jan Blachowicz at UFC 259. When fighting against Jan Blachowicz, Israel Adesanya was chasing 2 championship belts, namely the light heavyweight and middleweight belts. At that time, Israel Adesanya had never fought at the light heavyweight division, and that put his undefeated 20-blank records at stake. As a result, Israel Adesanya was unable to maintain its 20-0 unbeaten record, and Israel Adesanya gave up in grappling clashes. Defeat this time, many believe that this is one of Israel Adesanya's weaknesses and will be a blueprint to defeat him. This was proven when Adesanya fought against Marvin Vettori at UFC 263 to defend his middleweight championship belt. Adesanya's meeting with Vettori this time was the second time after their first fight in 2018. From the defeat of Adesanya against Jan Blachowicz, Marvin Vettori tried to use the blueprints from the previous fight. But apparently, Israel Adesanya shows that he is a grappler who cannot be underestimated. This can be seen where he was able to offset 10 of the 14 takedown attempts made by Vettori. Even Adesanya was able to get out quickly from Vettori's rear naked choke. Jan Blachowicz, light heavyweight. Before January, Blachowicz won his belt title. Jan Blachowicz was a dark horse in his division class. Not even a few people thought Jan Blachowicz was an underdog. But over time, Jan Blachowicz was able to prove who he really was. Jan Blachowicz was able to beat Israel Adesanya, who at that time had a 20-0 unbeaten record. After successfully winning the fight with Israel Adesanya, this time Jan Blachowicz has a chance to defend his light heavyweight title against Glover Teixeira. This fight is likely to be held on October 30, 2021, at UFC 267. Before defeating Israel Adesanya, Jan Blachowicz first fought with Dominic Reyes at UFC 253 for the vacant title. In the duel at that time, Reyes was more favored because he almost won against the previous light heavyweight ruler, John Jones. However, Jan Blachowicz managed to turn things around by defeating Reyes through a technical knockout in the second round. Likewise against Corey Anderson too, where Jan Blachowicz was unseated because he lost to Corey Anderson in their first meeting. Jan Blachowicz is a light heavyweight champion who cannot be underestimated. Francis Ngannou, heavyweight. You could say that Francis Ngannou is the right man to become the heavyweight champion belt holder. That's because the holder of the monster class champion belt must have a face that is also scary. Francis Ngannou won the UFC heavyweight championship belt after defeating Stipe Miocic with a technical knockout in the main match of UFC 260. The presence of Francis Ngannou as a heavyweight champion belt holder is a breath of fresh air in the UFC, especially in the heavyweight division. This is because in the last 5 years the throne of this division has been held by two names that revolve around the same place. The two names are Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier. Francis Ngannou is currently 34 years old, where he discovered mixed martial arts at the age of 27 when he left Cameroon for France. Francis Ngannou's achievements were so fast with his strength and skill that he finally stopped in 2018 when he was defeated by Stipe Miocic in their first meeting. After the defeat, Ngannou's confidence fell until he suffered a humiliating defeat against Derek Lewis. But now, Francis Ngannou has impressively regained his confidence, starting 5 wins in a row against veteran heavyweights, including Stipe Miocic. Stipe Miocic himself has become the best in UFC heavyweight history, where he has managed to win the last 2 fights of the trilogy duel with Daniel Cormier to strengthen his heavyweight supremacy. Well, that's the belt holders in each division in the UFC. Don't forget to leave your comments below and like and share the video. See you in other videos. See ya.